afternoon, LEC community. Welcome to this week's episode of Ask an Educator. My name is Susana Lizarras, and I'm the Deputy Director of the Latinx Education Collaborative. Our mission is to increase Latino representation in K through 12 classrooms, and the Ask an Educator show is dedicated to educators who are already doing some bomb work in classrooms. And we get the amazing pleasure of having a high school teacher with us today. You'll hear all about her. It is our Black History Month celebration this month. And so we're introducing you to all of our panelists for our Afro Latinx panel that is happening next week, February 23rd from 5 to 6 Central Time. You don't want to miss it. And without further ado, I am here to introduce you to Genesis Rosales. Genesis, how are you?
I am doing well. How are you doing today?
Good, good. I hear you have PD tomorrow, so it's a little bit of a slower day than teaching.
Yes, I am so excited to have a nice little break. So, yeah, it'll be a nice, calm day, starting off with the mental health PD and then some world language stuff. So that'll be nice.
Nice, nice. Well, to get us started, of course, I'd love for you to tell us about yourself, where are you from, and what you do.
So, of course, my name is Genesis Rosales. I currently live in Baltimore, and I teach high school Spanish 1 and 2. Prior to Baltimore, I taught in DC as well as Indianapolis, where I called home for a few years. Originally, I'm from Los Angeles, but I called Indianapolis home for high school and some of college. So I would say that's like my hometown. So.
Yeah, Los Angeles is like the opposite end of the country from Maryland. So you kind of like did the whole 180.
Very true, yeah. And went to school in Chicago, and then, Indianapolis and Chicago, then the East Coast. So kind of been all over.
Nice. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. My next question is one of my favorites. It's about your leadership story. So kind of your upbringing, your journey as a student or a professional, or any story you'd like to tell us about kind of how you got here.
Well, I would say honestly, I have always loved education. Like I was a good student, I would say, for the most part. Like I had good grades in high school, and I loved like college, and like I have 2 master's degrees. So I would say I was one that like loved, going to school. And I didn't go to school for education originally. I went to school for fashion, merchandising, and business. Did that for a while, and like that was never like I was never one that wanted to be a teacher, so that was never the plan. And yeah, like that was never like something that I wanted to go to school for. But I was actually speaking at my friend's career day. My friend, I can't think of whose career day it was, but one of my friends was a principal actually. And so I went and spoke at his career day because at the time I was a boutique owner, and sorry, my dog won't stop whining. So I was a boutique owner at the time. And so I went and spoke at my friend's career day, and I happened to be mingling at, like I stayed after one of the classes and just like was mingling around the school just to see, what they were up to. And as a boutique owner, you realize that like because I was a boutique owner, I would also sleep once a week, because you realize that not every day you're making like $1,000 or all that. So I would like substitute once a week, or every now and then. And so I started like mingling around like that school. I forget why I was doing it, but I just like stayed after the career day. I think I was waiting for like my certificate of like volunteering or something like that. And there were these 2 Latinx girls that were like hanging out for the assignment, and they couldn't go to the ESL room because I think the teacher was gone. And then there was another girl who spoke English, but those 2 girls didn't. And then they were reading the I Have a Dream speech, and then they didn't speak English. And so they were like, we're telling the girl who spoke English, like, hey, can you, tell the teacher that we can't read this? And the teacher was like, oh, well, the ESL teacher is not here today.
Mm.
So tell them, to read their book or something like that. And so then I got kind of offended because, easily the other girl could have translated for them because she spoke Spanish and English.
Mm.
So then I decided to like sit down with the girls and like translate it word for word. Because it's like such an important speech, for everyone, especially even like for, Latinos, and Black people and white people, for just everyone.
Mhm.
Because even like when I think of, Martin Luther King Jr., and like Cesar Chavez, like Martin Luther King Jr. even like had sent a telegram to Cesar Chavez when he was doing, his hunger strike.
Mhm.
And like, he was like, I stand with you, all that stuff. So it's like, you know, like I think of those things and I always think of them like standing together.
Mhm.
And I even used these things before I was an educator. And so like I like sat down with those three girls and I explained to them like why it was such an important thing. And I remember going to the hall and I like wrote the like township and I was just like, hey, like these are my credentials, how can I get involved?
Mm.
And then I like let them know like I already have, I think I only had one master's at the time. Yeah, I had one master's degrees at the time. And then I like let them know like, hey, like, how can I get involved? Like this is what I have. And then like they told me, I can do the emergency license. And then I started teaching part-time while I sat at a boutique. And then I ended up just closing my store down while I like was doing school. And then I just started teaching Spanish because that was like the easy way to get in there because I already knew the language.
Mhm.
And then after that, I ended up getting licensed, getting my master's in higher ed at the time, and then started getting those credits to get a alternative certification in teaching.
Wow.
Long story short, but longer story than expected. But yeah, that's kind of the journey that got me into teaching.
Yeah, that's awesome, and it shows you kind of a unique kind of path to teaching, right? I mean, I've heard so many different variations of a similar story, right? Where it's like, I volunteered, or I was at my kids' school, or I was in the PTA, and then I got really involved, and
Mhm.
so hearing kind of all these different ways that education, that teaching is like the teaching bug, right? Like gets
Mhm.
people where you start spending more time with students, and you're like, I really like this.
Mhm.
Um, so I know when you and I had talked, your boutiques were doing okay, right? You had like a couple
Mhm.
locations and everything, and so making that transition over was I'm sure a difficult decision to make.
Yeah, it definitely was. And even now, like, like you always, when I was like reading through the questions earlier, like, and it said, like, as Latinx educators, we're usually the ones that like shift out,
Mhm.
first at times. Like, it's like, I was, even myself, I was like thinking about, like, in like our purpose, as educators or, uh, like I thought about this stuff, prior,
Mhm.
in the past, and like even when I was like shutting my boutiques down, I was like, is this my purpose or like is
Mhm.
this right? And like, did I already
Mhm.
fulfill my time? It's like I know that at that moment, like I had interns and I had like I used to be in management prior to that, and like I know like when I speak to like some of my friends who like I had under my wing or even like my interns and I feel like I had my purpose and and whether it was in like fashion already or I fulfilled, my time
Mhm.
uh in that field, whether it
Mhm.
was like getting them to, where they needed to be or,
Mhm.
I feel like, I did right. I did
Yeah.
what I had to do. Like
Yeah.
I teach now at a school that offers fashion, even though I don't get to, you know, double dabble as much as I want to.
Mhm.
I still get to talk to them about certain things that I did in the past or give them like tips or ideas or tell them about my journey or whatever
Mhm.
it is that, they ask me,
Yeah.
you
I
know.
think that's a really dope perspective that I don't think I've heard of, and that we probably don't share often enough, right? That like our lives are there's so much that we can do in life, and to say like I fulfilled my purpose there, right? And I helped elevate the voices of those interns and the people who you impacted while you were in fashion. And then, like, this is your purpose now. Instead of it being more of the sad story, which is like, that's done and now it's this, right? It's more like, you achieved your goals there and here you are now, right? And
Mhm.
impacting students and people in a different way. I'm gonna kind of bring to light some voices that are with us. We have a friend from LinkedIn who says hola. I think because we're primarily streaming to Facebook, sometimes those
Mhm.
names don't come over, but we have our amazing team member Delia with us. Hi, Delia. She says, hi, Genesis. Welcome to the LEC community, and we hear you. I love it. I love it. I
Hello.
love it. Thanks for listening, y'all. So you mentioned a little bit about, when you saw the question about how Latinx educators are one of the quickest to leave the classroom. Um, I'm imagining that there are some hurdles that perhaps you
Mhm.
had in attempting to be a classroom teacher, or maybe of course COVID and everything. But is there a particular hurdle that you've had to overcome to fulfill your dream of teaching?
I think on I think honestly, and I help with recruitment in my district too.
Yeah.
I think certification honestly is one of the hardest things.
Mm,
And I would say, and even like when I do like reading and research, I think it's because usually we are placed in teaching Spanish. And I
mm,
wanted to be, and I'll tell you this because I love math. I wanted to be a statistics teacher.
mm,
And originally I was going to do, you know, a teaching program. I'm not going to drop their name, but I ended up, doing a teaching program, and then I dropped it because I was already certified in Spanish. That I was like, why would I do this teaching program and get a pay
mm,
cut when I was already certified in Spanish? But I honestly like had a passion for math, and I wanted to
mm,
teach statistics, because like I've always, loved math, and I was like good at it. And when I was already certified, and then I got recruited by Johns Hopkins to teach, Spanish for them, like part time. So I was like, why would I go through this program and get paid less for that, like that year? When they're
mhm,
like, well, we already have enough math teachers, and so I might as well just, go back to teaching my Spanish. So
mm,
it sucks. And even like, so we always get plays, to teach Spanish because we speak the language. Uh,
mhm,
and then even then, like uh, when we got recruited to teach, Spanish or whatnot, a lot of the girls that I was with, and like in our hiring class, a lot of them were saying that they wanted to teach ESL, but then they didn't get hired for that. They got, hired to teach Spanish
mm,
um, instead of, things that they wanted to teach. So I think
mm,
that's usually that's one of the, the things that um, they don't want to teach. Like they don't want to, maybe they don't want to teach the language, but then they get placed in it. Um,
mhm,
and so maybe that's like a turnoff for them. But then once they get placed in it, like the certification's an issue, um,
mhm,
or like they like have to take classes, or they have to, once you get placed in it, like the schools will hire you, but then like the certification office is a whole nother, uh, it's a whole nother game.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that because there's so much, in our supports of teachers, so much comes up when it comes to certification. Um, you have your pool of people who have immigrated from another country and they were fully certified to teach there, but
Yeah.
because of the kinks and things in our system and trying to get them certified here, it gets really difficult, right? And so
Mhm.
they end up having to take any job they can kind of get, and most of them in schools. But even people who go a route similar to yours, you see how test bias sometimes shows up, right? Standardized test bias, and how
Mhm.
people are need to take the certification tests 2, 3, 4 times, and
Mhm.
how that can get expensive, right?
Yeah.
So you're absolutely right. That certification actually is a really big hurdle for a lot of people, Latinos included, right?
Yep.
Um, I'm gonna bring up Delia's with us. She's joining in on the discussion. Delia, I love me some math too. She says, "Math, you are so brave." I know that
Really.
she says that math was my ultimate hurdle to get through my undergrad to get to teaching. I love how Delia also answered the question by the opposite of your answer, right? So Spanish, I know for here in Missouri, you can kind of skip over some certification steps
Mhm.
when you speak a second language, right? And
Yeah.
because bilingual immersion schools are gaining traction, and there's a shortage of teachers in general, but especially Spanish teachers, French teachers, Chinese teachers,
Mhm.
Mandarin teachers. Um, there's a special route to go if you are
Mhm.
bilingual, right?
Yeah, they did change. They changed it in Maryland too, which is nice. But then like, so and I feel like they change it so much. Like
Mhm,
mine, I was like certified in Indiana, but then when I got to DC, I got like it changed, and
mhm,
then when I got here, it was like such a pain. I'm certified now,
mhm,
finally in Maryland, but it was like such a pain.
mhm.
And then like when they were doing my transcript analysis, it was like you need to take this class, and it was like the biggest pain to do. And so I had to take I had to do a speaking assessment and a writing one. I want to say was it yeah, a
Mhm.
speaking and a yeah, speaking and a writing. I want to say.
Is it in
They're
Spanish?
changing.
You have to take it in
Um,
Spanish?
yeah, I had to do it in Spanish, and it was funny because the lady who actually was doing mine um was I had to do it, and it was like during COVID, and it was an Asian lady who was doing mine,
Mhm.
and but she was like, I'm just your proctor. And then so like I was like doing mine all like virtual, but then she actually like ended up knowing Spanish, and then she was like, oh, I like your answers. And I was like, oh. And she was like, yeah, I took Spanish too, but I was just your proctor. I wasn't like doing any of your like your grading. I was like, oh, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And so like it was cool because uh she was just like proctoring me the whole time, but like she was like grading them, and
Mhm.
I was like, oh, okay. And I was like, I felt like she was invading my privacy. And I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah,
oh.
just a little bit, just a little bit.
And I thought she was just like sitting there watching me.
Oh,
But
so wait, were you the only person in the test room?
yeah. And like it was like kind of like when you do the AP exam, like
Mhm.
it was like a automatic, one, and I would just like press next. But she was like watching my entire screen. Yeah,
Ah.
but she was just like my proctor. But yeah, they made it where they changed a lot of our things. But when I recruit, like we do a lot of recruiting from like Jamaica and Puerto Rico,
Mhm.
and but even for them, like a lot of candidates they even have doctorates and like it in masters, like they only count certain ones if it's in that field, and
Mm,
it's crazy because it's like a doctor should be a doctorate.
right.
um and so they pick and choose, which is ridiculous.
I've run into that a few times, trying to support some of our community members in getting certified. I mean, it almost feels like redlining sometimes, right? Because
Mhm.
it's like, you have to do this, right? And then these aren't like clear cut things a lot of the times. It's like you have to upload this document and then talk to this person about this thing. And then maybe, like you said, take a couple of classes. And a lot, for a lot of us, if you already have kids or you have a family, or you have a home where you're like, on another part of your life, you're like, to go back to school is a whole nother thing, right? So it absolutely is a lot of hurdles to getting certified, especially kind of in those alternative routes.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, what we of course know the hurdles are there and they exist, and especially today. First, thank you for what you do, and for I know how passionate Genesis was actually also a nominee for. It's actually how we met, you and I, for our Educator of the Year this past year. So congratulations on that. You're obviously making a really big impact on the people around you. So with that being said, what would you say keeps you going? What motivates you to keep going?
Ah, this this has been a tough year, I'll say, but
Mhm.
um honestly, I can't win them all, but I don't know. I feel like as long as I can win some of them over. I think like when I see like my some of my kids get excited over like get excited over their work, even
Mhm.
if it's just like um a little paragraph or correcting their friends or whatever it is. I think that's what gets me excited. Um, yeah, or like when they all say, because I always say okay bilingual, or so when they'll like call someone else that. That's kind of what gets me excited. Um, yeah, because sometimes of course I'll get like frustrated or they get
Yeah.
frustrated, but um, when they'll correct each other, I think that's what what
Mhm.
like makes my day. Or um, when they're like, yeah, I did that, like the little
Mhm.
things. That's kind
Mhm.
of what gets me excited. Or when
Mhm.
I like they'll remember stuff, like the kids that I don't teach anymore. They'll come in and like read something on my board or uh, you know, whatever it is. Those are like the little things that, because I only teach them for a year. So if they're able to remember something, so like simple or uh, you know, have a like a basic conversation,
Mhm.
like those are the things that at least keep me going, you know.
Well, I noticed all of those are evidence of the impact you're making, right? So,
Mhm.
you started off by saying like when they get excited about using the language, and then when they remember things, those are all kind of pieces of evidence of the impact you're having on them, and how comfortable they are with you too to
Mhm.
correct each other. And I know that a big thing in my Spanish classes when I was a student was when non-native Spanish speakers would listen to our music. I remember Mi Corazoncito by Aventura was big when I was in high school, and my Spanish class, like, they loved that song. The non-native Spanish speakers, the part "Mi corazoncito es mío, mío, mío,
Mhm.
mío, mío," right? They would sing it really, really loud, and so the Spanish classes are a good opportunity to kind of share culture, and so that's really cool that you're making an impact on them.
Mhm. Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Well, to go to the question that you referred to earlier, yes, Latinx educators are unfortunately we're the highest growing demographic in education, but we're also the quickest to leave. Do you have any thoughts about that, or any pieces of advice, or just thoughts around that statistic?
I would say, man, honestly, in the last three school, yeah, the last three schools that I worked at, I was the only Latinx person that taught at all three schools. And I mean, they're all nice schools too. Outside of like workers, like people that, housekeep, like
Support
housekeeping, which
staff.
is crazy.
Mhm.
Um, outside of like I was the only person that, spoke Spanish or that was Latinx.
Mhm.
And I think that's and 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 I was always a Spanish teacher. Um, and and it was Baltimore, Washington D.C., and in Indianapolis. Um, I think usually it's well, a because we don't have like support or we don't really feel like supported in our buildings. Because we don't have people. I mean, we don't have people that look like us. We don't have
Mhm.
people that we connect with, and it
Mhm.
sucks because it's like we don't have anyone in our department usually.
Mhm.
Because we're usually the only people that unless we have someone else that teaches a world language, but for the most part our departments are usually small.
Mhm.
um, in my building now I'm the only world language teacher. My last school there were three of us, which was nice because we at least had you know three people in our department, but before that I was the only one once again. But
Mhm.
um, when you're the only one, you don't really have the support, so it gets tough because you either feel like you're like left out, or you feel like you're doing something wrong, or you don't have anyone to like connect with. Um, by now, kind of got I got the hang of it now. But prior to it, it's like you're kind of on your own.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but as far as um, like tips, definitely uh, connect with like your district at PDs, at like PLCs. Now I got it down packed where I have
Mm-hmm.
made really good friends with our world language leader, the person who's in charge, which he is a gem. He sends out lots of great tips. I've made great friends with a lot of people in our like world language department as a whole from different schools
Mm-hmm.
where we share lots of resources. Because it's like you're really not alone as long as you reach out. Like there's other people that are in the same boat as you, and like join a PLC. Like you just have to take the time to actually join. A lot of districts aren't like ours where you have PLCs where you actually meet.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, I'm trying to think of anything else
No,
because
no, go ahead. Sorry. No,
um,
sorry. I was gonna say, unfortunately, that's a lot of what we hear as an answer to that question, right? Is the isolation that people often feel, right? And especially if you don't feel like you see yourself affirmed, even as a teacher, right? It's super important for us students, and I think that's something a lot of us could say is pretty obvious, right? But even for our teachers to feel affirmed and to feel accepted and listened to and heard. That's often what I hear as an answer to that question is just feeling alone. And so it's been a big kind of goal of our organization is to do this, right? To build
mhm,
bridges and to build networks so that people, hopefully someone, hearing you, or I know of connections that have been made from people listening, Ask an Educator interviews and being
mhm,
like, oh, they teach the same thing I do. I'm going to reach out. So yeah, absolutely. It kind of does take sometimes taking that extra step, like you said, reaching out to your department head or to here in Kansas City, a lot of the local school districts have people starting up affinity groups within their
mhm.
district. Really exciting as well. So, yeah, sorry, I think you were going to say something else.
No, I was gonna say and I always think back my first year, like I said, because I reached out and what can I do to be a teacher? I was an awful teacher because I didn't know how to be a teacher. And what they gave me was the school I taught at a Montessori elementary middle school
Mhm.
where I taught like 300 kids. It was pre-K through eighth grade,
Mhm.
and I didn't know what I was doing. I was like looking up songs and whatever else. I was an awful teacher. I didn't know what I was doing. It was they at the end of the school year, the lady was like, I mean, you're okay, but I don't think this is your grade. This is your age group. And I was like it's not. It's definitely not my age group.
Yeah.
Um, as a high school teacher, like this is my age group for sure. I
Mhm.
finally got it down packed. I have my resources. I have my lesson plans. I got it down packed. This is my 6th year now.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. So,
Mhm.
um, and it's like now I go, to my conferences. I have my support group. I have my little village. I've taught at some good schools. I ask when I have questions. But it's like I hear of like these teachers that are teaching high school. It's their first year, and I couldn't imagine going into a high school with like no resources or
Mhm.
getting handed like a binder and it's like here you go, like this is what I used last year, and not knowing what to do. So it's like like join the Facebook groups or ask veteran teachers what they're doing. And I'm one of those people where and I'm telling people like whoever is watching this, like if you email me and it's like, hey, do you have this, I will send you stuff. I'm not one of those like picky people where like, oh God, they're emailing me. I
Mhm.
love sharing stuff. I can show you I'm one of those people where I love sending out emails like, hey guys, I just sent out this resource, like let me know how you use it. I love I want I love sending out stuff. I
Yeah.
was sending to I will respond to a text thread that like the world language boss sends, and I'm sure people will look at the email like here she goes again. I'm one of those people in the district. Like I love sending out resources that I find, and I'm sure they're like here's Genesis Rosales. Like that's how I am because I love sharing resources.
Yeah.
Like that's just me. Like I eventually want to like move up and be one of those people that, that's a world language leader. Like that's who
Mhm.
I am. And it's like, if not, that those resources are just going to keep sitting there, you
Mhm.
know. So by all means, like if you want to email me and ask me questions, sure. I'm sure I have
I love it.
something,
Yeah. I love that. And there's a newish teacher or maybe someone who's new to that department in that thread that's like not annoyed by your emails.
Mhm,
That's like, "Oh my gosh, this is bomb. Like this is exactly what I
mhm,
was looking for," or "I've been looking for
mhm.
a video like this forever," you know? So
Yeah,
even though there are going to be people who are like, "Really this person again?"
as
They're
well.
probably the majority are like, "Okay, this video is dope." And I've learned so much about TikTok in the last couple of
Mhm.
months and how finding teachers on there and those teachers being so open to like, yes, please message me, DM me, email me, call me, that are willing to collaborate.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, I think in some cultures and environment, like in schools, there are those teachers who are like, nah, these are my
Yeah.
lesson plans, these are my resources, which is cool, it's valid
Mhm.
if that's what it is, but yeah, being open to that collaboration,
Mhm.
we have a friend of ours with us, Dr. Gilbert Davila. Thank you for offering to help students. Sorry, this is a step that we need to do to show Latinx teachers that we want them to succeed, and
Mhm.
offering a hand to help. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that, Dr. Davila. Thank you for being with us. Um, Yes. So avoid working in isolation and reaching out to your village, like you said, right? Yeah, I love that. Well, kind of
Mhm.
on the opposite, not the opposite side of things, but speaking of your students, if to kind of wrap up, which I'm a little sad. This is kind of a sneak peek though, because we're gonna have Genesis on our panel next Wednesday for our Afro Latinx Educator panel, so don't miss that. But to kind of ask you our last question, if you had something that you want your students to walk away from your classroom knowing, what would that be?
Ooh. Let's see. That's a tough one. Probably. Mm, I don't know. Maybe like I don't know. I would say make the most of it. Um, I would say like definitely make the most of like what you have offered to you right now, and like
Mhm,
because there's so many opportunities that they have offered to them, um like just like right now, so many resources and so many things that like connections and networking that they have offered like just around the city, and so I feel like they should definitely take advantage of them before like going off to college or even in college, because those are still a lot of the resources that I even use today. um and and yeah, I feel like that's one of the things that I learned, is just making sure that I take advantage of every
mhm,
opportunity that comes in front of me, and
mhm.
um you know yeah, I would,
Yeah.
I would say that taking advantage of everything that comes in front of me,
Mhm,
um because you never know when you even like I said, like the networking opportunity aspect
mhm,
of it, because you never know when you're going to need someone, or
mhm,
um you know in the future also.
mhm. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that piece of advice. I think we can sometimes get stuck in um roles, right? So I think the first thing that comes to mind is gender roles, right? Like,
Mhm.
no, that's not for women, or that's not for men, or that's not for my age group, or that's not for Latinos, or that's not for
Mhm.
first generation people like me, or I don't know enough about that, right? And so we hesitate to take that risk of like, you know what, I am going to call that person, I am going to email Genesis and tell
Mhm.
her like that she was really dope and that I need her help, or I am going to email Susana.
Mhm.
It We are um unfortunately also a society that's very individualistic versus
Mhm.
the collective, right? And so where we hesitate to network, we hesitate to reach out for help. I know me, that's a big thing for me is I struggle to
Mhm.
ask for help. When there are people who are very willing to support you, there are going to be
Yeah.
people who are like a little more hesitant, but to hear that piece of advice, I think is a really good one.
Even like scholarships or like a few minutes to like chat, like whatever it is. I feel like it's a lot of it's like you said, or you know, like
Mhm,
just a little advice or whatever it is, like, saying like thank you for, stopping by to like talk to us, talk to our class. Like they have so many like speakers that, come to our schools and whatever it may be. Taking that extra like step or initiative, can make the difference that like for an internship, in the future or whatever it may be, or a job, you know.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I was my niece is graduating high school this year, and I told her like, there's so many scholarships out there. There's very little reason for you to pay very much money for school. Especially she's thinking to start in community college first. I'm like, oh, there's so many opportunities.
Mhm.
Don't pay for school if you don't have to. And also like you said, the internships opportunities, apprenticeships.
Mhm.
Getting in there and getting to know. You also made me think earlier about kind of dibble dabbling in different careers before you make the ultimate decision, right? So if you're between a veterinarian and a nurse, going and volunteering, and the only way to kind of make those connections is to take that leap
Mhm.
of what's available to you, right? So um Genesis, thanks so much for being with us. Any final thoughts or kind of pieces of advice for our community?
No, not yet. No, well, not that
Yeah.
I could think of. If anything, next week, I'm excited for next week. Thank you for having me. And that is it.
Yeah, of course. No, no. Thanks for being with us. As Genesis mentioned, Genesis is one of the panelists for next Wednesday's Afro Latinx Educator panel on February 23rd from 5 to 6 Central Time. You don't want to miss it. We have an amazing panel lined up. And this month, we're highlighting all of those panelists in Ask an Educator. Genesis, thank you so much for being with us today. Have a good PD day tomorrow, and we'll see you next week.
All right. See you next week.
All right. Bye, Genesis. Bye,
Bye.
everyone.